In this lesson, we'll talk about TempData, which is intended to hold any data that you need to transfer from one controller action to another controller action within the same request. So previously, we looked at the view bag and the view data, and we noted about them that the data that you store in the view bag or the view data are only available for one request. And once the view has been rendered, they are removed from memory. But what about a redirection scenario, like whenever you call the redirect to action method, for example, in this create action result method that was scaffolded out for me here? Well, that's the purpose of TempData. It will store that information around as we redirect from this create page to then the call to the index action result method. So typically what happens whenever you have this redirect to action, there's two types. There's a transfer and a redirect. A transfer will happen all internally on the server. So the way that you'll know if you're in a transfer is that the URL will look like the old URL, but the page you're looking at will look like the new redirected page. Okay, so that all happens on the server side. But a redirection happens when you tell the browser that, hey, I've finished this, but I'm not going to show you a page. Instead, I'm going to give you a code, a 302 or a 303. That means I want you now to redirect and request a different page. And so in that scenario, the TempData works for us. Now, how does it do this? Well, internally, it's using session variables in order to pull this off. The big question is why you'd ever want to use this. Why would you ever want to transfer data from, for example, this create action result method back to the index action result method on a single redirect? Well, the use case that came to mind first is whenever you want to communicate back to the user that something was successful or unsuccessful. So did we successfully create the new product, or was there an error in the creation process? And you can get a little bit more creative than that, but that's the one that popped at the top of my head. All right, so what we want to do here is, you can see that I pulled out the insertion logic, or I never implemented it. And here what I want to do is call TempData, and I'll use square brackets and just give it the name of a new key. So I'll call this message. And then I'm going to set this equal to item was successfully created. All right, like so. And in the simplest scenario, I'm just going to go now to the index. And on the index, what we'll do here, near the top, we'll add an H4, and we'll go TempData, and then message like that. All right, so let's see if that works, and let's just go ahead and run the application. All right, so you can see that there's nothing here because we haven't added anything to TempData, so it just is null, and it doesn't even print out anything into the markup. So let's go ahead and create a new item, and we can give it any name we want. We'll create a new Bob, and we'll charge $23.32, and we'll release it on the 1st of January. And you can see here that I get the message now that the item was successfully created. Let's spruce this up a little bit. I'd like it to be highlighted in yellow, and then I'd like it to disappear after like 3 seconds. And this will be a precursor to something else we'll do here. So what I'll do is in the layout, I'm going to add some JavaScript that will look for a specific class, and if that class exists, then I'll put it right here. Then what I want to do is show that value, but in addition to that, I want to set the timeout for 3 seconds, and I want that H4 to fade out over time at that point. Okay, so that means I need to add this class called message here to my index.cshtml. So let's set the class equals message, like so. Now let's run the application, see it work. This is a pretty common scenario. I think you'll You can see this at work in other applications that you've used online. Let's create a new Bob. Let's charge $14.15. Release that 2016. Great. All right, you can see item was successfully created, and then after 3 seconds, it should disappear. All right, very cool. Now, let's talk about some other features of the TempData. After you access it, then it's removed from memory, unless you want to keep it around a little while. And so what we can do is actually peek at the value. When we peek at it, it doesn't remove it from memory. It will just allow us to see the value, but it won't remove it from that session variable. Or we can actually say, hey, we want to keep this around to the very next request. So in order to implement this, I just create a really silly example here that will allow us to do just that. Let me grab this here, and I'm going to stick this into here. And so I'm going to look at the value of message. Now, if there's nothing in there, then I just want to return an empty string. But if there is something in there, I want to get that, grab that value and put it in my variable. And if that message contains Bob, so I created a new product that has the word Bob in it, then I want to keep that data around for the next request. So it's going to hold it in the session until the next request, till we try to pull it out. And then here's what I'll do. I'll go and grab this message here, and I'm going to put it in all the pages. So at the bottom of the delete page, I'll put it here, and the bottom of the details page, I'll put it here. The bottom of the create page, I'll put it there, I think. And then the bottom of the edit page, I will put it there. And I think that's all I'll need to do. Okay. So now let's go ahead and build that, make sure it all works, and we will close everything and then run the application. And this is only because I started in the wrong spot. Okay, so let's create a new, I'm just going to create a new product called Jim, and I'm going to charge $34.56. 11, yeah, all the good stuff. And you can see the item was successfully created. Actually, let me change something up about this a little bit. Let me go into the controller, and just so we can see, and I'll put a single tick around the item. And here I'll go the collection, and we should be able to get at the product's name, I believe, like that. All right, so now let's try this again. All right, create new Jim, and I'll just start. Yeah, that's good. And then pick that and hit create. Okay, Jim was created successfully. Should go away. And now any other page I look at should have the. You can see how it kind of adjusted a little bit. It had the H4 with an empty string in it, and then it disappeared after 3 seconds, but it didn't display the message. That's the key here. But what if we were to go back and create a new item that had the word Bob in it? And pick that, and hit create. Item Bob was successfully created. And now when we go to a second page, let's go to the details. You can see that we peeked at the value, and we used some logic to determine whether we should keep it around for the very next request. All right. Again, silly examples, but maybe you can put them to creative use, just knowing that you have the TempData available to you. Okay. So hopefully you'll remember TempData used for redirection scenarios. However, you can hang on to those values by peeking them and using the keep methods as well. All right. See you in the next lesson. Thanks.